welcome back to the Just As I Am podcast. It's your host, per usual, Nicole, and today we are probably going to get in our feelings a little bit. I'm not going to lie. On today's episode, we are going to be discussing grief, so stay tuned. I really thought that I was going to do better this season and keep you updated on a weekly basis, but you know what? I'm staying true to myself and not doing that. So, the last little bit, as I kind of said in the last episode, we had to put my dog down. And that kind of, I would say, instigated this episode. It started me wanting to do this type of episode. And school is about to get out for the summer, so I will definitely have time. I'm really talking all over the place. But you know what? This summer, I'm going to try to do better. Don't hold me to that, but I'm going to try my very best. Last week, Saturday. Last week, we went to Tulsa to go visit Chloe, whom I've had on the podcast before. We met my Colorado family out in Tulsa, and we got to see little cousin graduate with her bachelor's degree. So shout out to Chloe Perrin. Look out for her on the music scene. She already has music out now, but her plans are to come back to Tennessee and see what she can, get into. But anyways, back to what we've got going on. We have probably heard the phrase good grief more times than we can count. I mean, we say it ourselves, I'm sure. I know I do, but is there even such a thing as good grief? What does good grief even mean? Well, today we are going to take a deep dive and get a better understanding of grief and what it is. So, like I just said, we've probably heard the phrase good grief a million times, but who is notorious for that phrase? I'll give you about 3 seconds to think about it. If you guessed Charlie Brown, you are correct. Charlie Brown has been saying good grief for the past 72 years, and he continues. And when he says it, it's typically in a moment of despair or frustration. Charlie Brown is not one of the luckiest people on this planet, and so therefore he says good grief a lot. But the actual definition of grief is the anguish experienced after significant loss, usually from a death. When struck with grief, you also can get psychological distress, sociological distress, separation anxiety, confusion, yearning, obsessive dwelling on the past, and apprehension about the future. So I can definitely attest to some of these things. Depression and separation anxiety and dwelling on the past. I usually, when I am in a state of just emotional disaster, I guess, I do not want to be alone. I don't want to be by myself. Even if somebody is in the vicinity with me, I would like to be sitting very close to them. So that would be an example of the separation anxiety. But, these may seem like they are not a big deal, but when intense enough, they can do great harm to one's body. Another thing that I can use myself as an example for is when I'm having I don't want to say an anxiety attack, but like, because, attacks only last for such a time, but whereas just having an elongated anxiety episode, sure, we'll just use episode. One thing that I don't do is eat. I struggle to eat a lot. Um, we took Lily on a Tuesday, and I probably didn't eat an actual meal. And I'm saying like at least a whole plate. Like I've snacked and nibbled, but I probably didn't eat a whole meal for almost a week. And eating is important, sleeping is important. It's hard to sleep sometimes too. And so that's what, there, among other things, these are things that can cause harm to one's body when they are going through grief. So when grieving, you go through many emotions, and not the good kind either. We're not going through happiness and joy and gratefulness, We're going through with intense sadness and anger, denial, shock, numbness, and just feelings of helplessness or hopelessness. That's just a few of them. That's not even the whole enchilada there. And I can definitely attest because it's been over a month and I'm still, I'm still sad, and at times I'm angry, and I guess the helplessness or hopelessness could apply too, but grief, it just has many faces, it just has many emotions. It's not just black and white. While people, excuse me, while those are emotional, there's also physical things such as changes in appetite, which, I mentioned earlier, sleep patterns, mentioned that earlier, energy levels. That's another one. Along with all of those things, grief can affect behaviors too. So, when grieving, grief doesn't just, it's not just on the inside, it's in you from head to toe. You know, people can become recluses and people become less social. It can affect concentration or cause impulsive decision making. There are 7, discussed, known, whatever you want to call it, stages of grief that a person can go through. The first one is shock and denial. I feel that very much so. This is the initial phase, and it involves disbelief and difficulty in accepting the reality. Second on our list is pain and guilt. Once the shock has moved along, in comes intense grief, along with its friends, guilt, and remorse. Third on this timeline is anger and bargaining. So bring on the frustration and anger. Here we have the deal making to undo what's been done. So we're angry, okay? And some things, grief we usually put with the loss of something, like a person or a pet, family member. But grief can also come from, losing a job, losing this, that, these, or those. So, we've seen it in movies a lot where the person who's grieving, they're like, I will do anything if you just bring back or give me back or let me da 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 da. That would fall under this phase, this step. Number 4 is depression. Depression is something where no light can be found. Joy and motivation are buried deep. our next step, number 5, is the upward turn. So, as grief becomes weaker, it's finally stretched out, it's fading, it's finally dissipating, the person begins to ease up and may start to become hopeful again. So after that, we have number 6, reconstruction. This is where a person starts to integrate the loss into their life and create a sense of normality. I feel that. Lastly, we have number 7. So our final step of the 7 phases of grief is acceptance and hope. This is the final step into accepting what has been lost has changed them, but not defeated them. Golly. That's a big acknowledgement, Those are the stages, but what about types? Okay? I have found, doing my research, because I'll research stuff, except for the pronunciation. But anyways, you know me. So, the 6 types of grief that I found are anticipatory, abbreviated, delayed, inhibited, cumulative, and collective. So, we have all grieved at some point over one thing or another, but what about when others are grieving? How do we respond? Well, the answer is, how do we want people... Mercy, how do we want to be responded to is the answer. So, however you respond to somebody is how you should, if you were in that situation, how you would want to be responded to. So, things we should say would be things along the lines of, I'm so sorry for your loss. I'm here for you if you need anything. I'm praying for you. I know you have to be hurting. Things, and we can offer our words and our condolences in a kind way, but there are also, physical things that we can do, right? So we can offer to help others with, please let me know if there's anything I can do for you, or I'm happy to help you with anything you may need. You can also share memories and support to someone. Just easy, simple things like that. Things we shouldn't do that we should not be telling people or saying to people would be telling them to move on or cheer up, get over it. Because that would honestly, if I was hurting about something and somebody said something like that to me, I would probably throw hands. I'm not gonna lie. That's not, the Christian thing to say, but let's be honest. So, grief is something that we all go through, some more than others. We have to remember to treat others how we would want to be treated if we were in their shoes, kind of like I said earlier. In some cases, nothing helps grief. It can't be avoidable. The Bible tells us that grief is a natural human experience, and it acknowledges that it is a valid feeling and that it is real and painful. But what does it also say about grief? Any ideas? Can you think of anything? Well, the Bible tells us that God understands and is near to the brokenhearted. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. The Bible reminds us that grief is only temporary. Weeping may endure for the night, but joy comes in the morning. If you need a good reminder to get that stuck in your head, you can listen to Tauren Wells sing it in the car to you, when you're in the shower, when you're out for a walk. He definitely, that's joy in the morning will definitely get that stuck in your head. It's fabulous. So God is in control of our lives. He knows all. Okay, He knows everything. We know that. It's just a fact. He knows our past, present, and future. He knew us before we were even in our mother's womb, right? He has plans that, although it is hard sometimes to just trust Him, everything has a purpose. Everything He does has a purpose. And golly, Bill, as humans, it is absolutely a struggle to understand sometimes what our purpose might be, or the purpose behind Him allowing things to be a certain way or doing certain things. And, His way is better than ours. And that, just human nature. It's so hard to think about that and try to accept it, and to know and to have faith that everything happens for a reason, and the reason is good. Thinking about this when I was, finishing it up finally, I just thought about Job and how Job had it hard, but he still praised God and knew that God was in control, and that whatever he had cooking up there was gonna, everything was gonna be fine. It was gonna be okay. And he's just one of the many examples that we can find in the Bible. But grief may not be good, as Charlie Brown says, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. The sun is still gonna rise. In the end, everything's gonna be okay. I heard one of my coworkers tell somebody the other day, they said, even just about small problems, because there's levels of grieving. You have low levels of like maybe minor things, and then you have just like absurd grieving where it feels like it's never gonna end and your heart is gonna hurt forever. But another coworker came in, and I guess they just were having a bad day or something, and she said, I don't know what's going on, but I always think to myself, in 6 months, is it still going to be a problem, and am I still going to worry about it? And if the answer is no, then I'm okay. So I don't know if that may pertain to this, but think about it 6 months from now. The grief may dim, and there's always probably going to be sadness if it is from a loss of a family member or a pet, but it's not going to be as painful. And hopefully you will be at a point where you can recall all those memories and just smile instead of, because right now, yeah, it's been over a month, but I've been definitely like the waves in the ocean. I've had my incredibly heartbreaking moments, and then I've been okay. And, I'm back to a point where I look at pictures and it just makes me tear up because I miss her. But I know that she is in a better place and she's not hurting anymore. And that, it gives me a little peace, but it still makes me sad because she's not here with me. But I know one day we will be reunited. And in my mind, somebody had said something the other day, well, a little while ago. They said, because a whole debate has been, are pets in heaven? And I told somebody, I said, well, if it's heaven, there are going to be pets. There's going to be animals. So I have 10,000% faith that I will see her again. So Anyways, thank you for sticking with me through this roller coaster that we just went on. I, I really got a little mixed up there, but hopefully my message got across and you learned something. But, anyways, all right, my friends, I am going to do my absolute best to see you next week on the next episode. So, no matter what time of day you're listening to this, have a great day. Good morning, great night, sleep well, guys. You know, there will be joy in the morning. Bye.